The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everyone, depending on where you are in the world. This is Ryan Crodel at Balancell. Thanks for taking the time to join us here for the webinar today. We still have quite a few folks joining into the webinar now, so we will get started in another couple of minutes. So hang tight and we'll get going. Thanks. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started here. Again, this is Ryan Crodel from Balancell. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us here today for a webinar on utilizing heart rate data to improve swimmers' performance. We're very pleased to have with us the Chief Marketing Officer from a company called Phlexs, Ryan Rosenbaum here, who they are making an innovative wearable device designed to track swimming activities. It's unlike anything else out there on the market today. So I think you're really going to enjoy it. And on the product and other this is more about. And so we'll jump in just a minute, but just a couple of housekeeping items. We do like to keep these as interactive as possible. So please do submit any questions or anything you want us to dive deeper on in through the GoToWebinar interface. And I'll take those questions and jump in and ask Ryan those questions as they come up. And so please do let us know if you've got questions or any topics you want us to dive into further. We'd love to hear more from you. One of the questions we always get on the webinars is, will the slides be made available after the webinar? And the answer, as usual, is yes. We'll make both the slides and the recording of the webinar available to everyone who registered. So please do share those links with anyone who you think might be interested who couldn't join us here today. So with that, I will go ahead and hand over to Ryan, the Chief Marketing Officer. Ryan, you there?
Yes, I am. How's it going?
Yeah, going well. All yours.
Awesome. So, I guess to start off, obviously the title of this talk is going to be utilizing heart rate data to improve swimmers' performance. It's definitely worth going back into kind of what the history of our company Phlexs is, how we founded it, and what got us into it. So Phlexs was founded by myself and of three of my other teammates while we were collegiate athletes at the University of Florida. For those that don't know, swimming at the University of Florida is kind of synonymous on a global level. That's where the 2012 Olympic swimming head coach for the U.S. Is the main coach for the collegiate team, as well as training some of the Olympians like Caleb Dressel, Ryan Lochte, and Elizabeth Beisel from the past. So the four of us all met as swimmers on the swim team at UF, and we were all working towards various degrees in our different fields, but also obviously getting into entrepreneurship, you have to jump into different areas. A good example being Marcin, who is our Chief Product Officer. He's a 2012 that the sport of swimming had. Swimming is one of those sports that's never really over a few of these. Lack of innovation in swimming. Training plans. Swimming is a very affluent sport, and people normally spend a good amount of money. So why not bring some level of automation to that, or even a way to check up on a swimmer after a personal swimming option? And then a question that we're asked all the time is about bulky watches. And the best way to put that is if you were to have a marathon runner wear a pair of sandals, they're still going to be able to run a marathon probably, but they're definitely not going to be able to do it to the best of their ability. Another example would be maybe putting a weight in the middle of someone's golf club. You can still hit the ball, but it's definitely not going to be as efficient as having a nice, streamlined professional golf club. So the way that we look at it is that while there are wrist-worn fitness trackers that do have swimming functionality, they are not swimming fitness trackers. They don't take into account a lot of the metrics that swimmers need, along with the hydrodynamic reasoning for needing a tracker in the water. And then obviously last, which is where Balance Health comes in, is heart rate feedback. So being able to bring heart rate to the sport of swimming is something that has not been done yet before us. Nobody has actually utilized anything in the heart rate realm. There hasn't been any proven ability to be able to collect heart rate off of swimmers. To the best that there has been in the industry, you see Apple Watch and Garmin that do lap counting. And now obviously Apple Watch added some heart rate functionality in the last few years for swimming. So going into the market, just to kind of brief you on how big of a deal swimming is globally. To 26.3 million fitness swimmers in the United States, that is not including any competitive swimming bodies. So that would basically just mean people that are going to their local pool, their backyard pool, and doing a few laps just to stay fit, because swimming is one of the highest caloric burning activities based off of the amount of time that you spend. So that's a big deal. Then you get into 9.4 million lap swimmers. Obviously, that gets into more continuous focused swimming, but still not on a competitive level. And then at the very bottom, you can see the number 1.16 million. That's all the competitive swimming bodies, whether it be triathlon, USA Swimming, Masters Swimming, collegiate swimming, etc. Then we take it to the global stage, and you can see that there's affluence across the market, and then other countries actually are larger in swimming. So obviously Australia, swimming is their national sport. Currently the world championships for swimming are being swum in Guangzhou, and Australia has the swimmers in their tabloids. You look over at newspapers on the front page, that big of a deal there. Then you get into Europe, there's obviously a large scope of swimmers that you can cover. So they obviously get a lot of fanfare, and as you can see, this is kind of the number of competitive registered swimmers. So you can just ration out off of census data, off of some of these countries, about how actually truly large the swimming community is. So just to kind of review some of the things that we wanted to do from the beginning when we founded Phlexs, we wanted to bring technology into the sport of swimming, but in a very unobtrusive way, because swim coaches are often very old. Obviously, the sport hasn't had any experience with technology, so coaches aren't going to be aware of what downloading an app is like, that kind of stuff. So basically, we had these requirements from the beginning to kind of leapfrog over anything that's out there already, like the Apple Watch and the Garmin, which is basically bringing educated breakdowns of people's workouts. So the best way to put this is that the Apple Watch will count someone's lap. It will say lap 1, lap 2, lap 3. But it won't actually make sense of that lap. It won't actually make sense of the entire workout. So what we will do is, instead of saying lap 1, lap 2, lap 3, let's say it was a set workout where it was 10 times a singular lap. Our algorithm is able to show you that it was 10 times that singular lap. You can track your time over those singular laps. And that goes all the way up in different distances. You could do it off of 5 miles swum. So then we get into the sensors. Obviously, we wanted this to have a head-based component. We wanted to be as hydrodynamic as possible for swimmers. And one of the things in development that we wanted to make sure we would get at is being able to apply a heart rate to a swimmer with the most accuracy that we possibly could in the sport. I think this is one of the highest, most novel aspects of the product, because nothing else is out there and nothing else has actually utilized the tempo in testing and actual development and go-to-market strategy. User experience, obviously making it easy for the swimmer to have it on their goggle. We don't like the idea of an add-on, and this is the closest thing that we can get to not being an add-on while still giving swimmers the ability to be flexible with the type of goggle that they want to wear. Then we get into accuracy. That lent in a lot to the different algorithms, and as you can see, we have a thumbs down for the watches, because across the board, all of them haven't necessarily developed their algorithms in the most swimmer-focused mindset. It's more of like a marketing functionality, and I can get into that a little bit later if anyone's interested. And last, obviously, heart rate. So the fixed position on the head, utilizing the temple, because there's that level of blood flow, and you can also have through the goggle strap always a constant pressure to that point. And then obviously watches do have heart rate monitors. I can speak on behalf of Garmin. It turns off its heart rate sensor whenever I jump into the water. The moment it detects anything, Garmin is obviously a company that just doesn't trust their heart rate tech. And then obviously you get into companies like Apple Watch, where they do have their heart rate, and I can't speak to their accuracy, but from my personal own anecdote, I can say that it's vastly inaccurate. So then we get into the actual functionality of the device that we wanted. It needs to be simple. It needs to thread onto a swimmer's goggle. They need to be able to hit minimal amounts of buttons. In this case, just hold down one button, and then they need to go for their swim. There shouldn't necessarily have to be this give and go all the time for swimmers, because swimming is so backwards in history. We didn't think up wanting to have an interface for a swimmer, because swimmers are often distracted. So swimmers are often thinking about the feeling during a workout, during a practice, during a fitness, laps in the back of the pool, versus actually staring at a clock or staring at a screen. And then we wanted to make sure that the ability to review their workout was afterwards. We don't want them to come into the wall and stress so much about them going 30 seconds and 2 milliseconds. We want them to know that data is going to be there, and just kind of be empowered by that. Think about what 30 seconds feels like versus stressing about the milliseconds on it. And so we got into this device. It's called the Edge, and the Edge is obviously a goggle-worn fitness tracker. It's grabbing heart rate off of the temple. And from the moment we started prototyping and proof of concepting it, it kind of just took on. We obviously, through our swimming careers, we've been very, very deep in the swimming network and culture. And so we were able to, obviously, off of just a few social media posts, a few YouTube videos that we started up, high-level swimmers started reaching out to us and asking about it, and seeing if they could start demoing our tech, seeing if they could start lending a hand in some of the, advice on how to develop the product from a user experience base. So on the left, you have Alia Atkinson. She is a world record holder and Jamaican Olympian. Top right, you have Cody Miller and his coach. Cody Miller is an Olympic gold medalist. He was on Michael Phelps's last relay in Rio. He's a breaststroker. And then on the bottom right is our founder, one of our founders, Luke Torres. And so there is this level of functionality that we brought into the Edge, where it's easy enough for the high level competitive swimmers to do. Obviously, world record holders, Olympic gold medalists. They can throw it on and it comes naturally. They don't even notice it on their goggles often. And so our idea is that there's a trickle down effect. It's the same way that, Jordan Brand would make a sneaker. You make your tech for the highest level of performance, especially when it comes to sports technology, and then you let that trickle down. Because if you see that Michael Jordan is using this type of basketball shoe, you're going to want that basketball shoe because it's going to be designed for him to be a better basketball player. You're going to want this high performance tech because it's designed for the best swimmers. And then obviously the rest of it kind of came through user experience and user interface on the app. So we made this for the competitive swimmer, but then we fashioned it for all swimmers, that being triathletes, fitness swimmers, recreational swimmers. We've tested with, up from the health side, people with heart issues and pregnant women, that kind of stuff. So then we then get into the app, which we wanted to obviously be non-intimidating for any swimmer to be able to use. And so what the app is able to provide is obviously a workout highlight breakdown. We are then able to give a calendar view of the swimmer's workouts. The bottom left, you can see our workout breakdown. So that's where our proprietary algorithm is basically just able to make sense of the data. 5 200s individual medley. That's 5 times 4 laps, 1 of each stroke. And then on the bottom right, you can see that we have a workout database that we give to kind of more the fitness swimmers where they can learn a little bit more. They can track their progress, obviously, through their performances in the app. And it kind of helps from like a training plan perspective. So just quickly going over some of the product development side of things. Where we started was we obviously conceptualized what this device wanted to be. We knew that it wanted to be head-based. We were very clear and certain that this needed to be a heart rate device to be a viable product to bring to market. So concept refinement, it had to fit goggles. It had to have the heart rate solution. It had to be hydrodynamically tested. And we wanted to make sure that it had Bluetooth low energy so that we could give the swimmer the ability to not be so tethered to their device, the same way that a lot of people through our testing and case studies have had with Apple Watches, where they're charging it every single night right next to their phone. We want them to be so held down by that. So mechanical development, we obviously did our part selection and testing. We immediately jumped on balance cell because we knew that that was going to be the easiest implementation of heart rate. It gave us the confidence in the accuracy, and it definitely gave us a little bit more of the ability to, we could kind of like go to the next bullet point because we knew that that was going to be completely covered. Schematic capture, prototyping, PCD, we obviously needed to make sure that once we had our sensor designs thought up and broken down onto a board, then we obviously had to deal with the waterproofing element of all this. So that brought us into our alpha prototype, which is our first water-ready unit. We then started utilizing some different balance cell some different capabilities that the balance cell gave us to bring the device to a new level. We brought in a haptic motor for the device, and utilizing the real-time balance cell heart rate data, we are actually able to give the swimmer a haptic vibration based off of where their heart rate zone is. So if anybody is familiar with triathlon, cycling, racing, you have your heart rate zones, and your heart rate zones dictate how your training session is affecting you, whether that's aerobic, anaerobic, if you're, losing fat, or if you are dealing at like a high anaerobic level where your muscles are filling up with lactic acid. So coupling the data of the balance cell with the ability to give the swimmer onboard vibrations, but still being unobtrusive, we believe gave us a huge advantage in the development process. And just to be clear, we didn't even add this haptic monitor in the concept refinement. We actually added this later on because we started realizing how capable the balance cell device was. We then also gave it an LED capability. So every time that it would motion to the swimmer, their heart rate zone, it would also have this front LED on the device that would let the coach know what zone they're in based off of a color system. And obviously we dealt with the supporting on-app firmware for that. Going forward, we obviously set up the user's heart rate and biometrics, so we need to make sure that it was customizable through normal scientific algorithms based off of calculating what a swimmer's max heart rate would be, or letting them customize and input their own max heart rate, and then obviously letting the device interact with them based off of those metrics. And then design for manufacturing, we have done injection mold and tie-dye casting, balance cell ultrasonic welded to the back, and then we use a glue adhesive joints, and we try and obviously get it through as much waterproof testing as possible. And we already have all of our certifications on the waterproof front, which gives us a lot of confidence. And then here's just a few, a little bit of.
Hey, Ryan, I'm sorry to interrupt. There was a question that came in about the timeline in terms of going back to the concept refinement, even before then. How long has this process been for you guys from idea all the way through to where you are now?
Yeah, for sure. So I would definitely preface with, it's been an unconventional entrepreneurial process because we started the company as student athletes. We were still full-time college students, full-time competitive swimmers, obviously some of us on an Olympic level, and then we started the company. So I would preface with that all the concept refinement and initial conceptual design moved very slowly at that point. So we did found in 2015, and I would say by the time we got into our actual mechanical development, it was beginning of 2017, maybe late 2016. So it's been a quite, and from the point of mechanical development, let's call it January 2017, it basically took us from 2017 to mid 2018 to have gotten to our beta, and basically starting our design for manufacturing and getting our certifications done, basically the final step to the whole process. So we spent about a year and a half, I would say, in the actual prototyping and development. Prior to that was about a year and a half of concept refinement. And then probably the last year or so has been a lot of the design for manufacturing, certifications, testing, all that kind of stuff.
Got it. Thanks.
Question?
Yep.
Yeah. So just a little bit of some of the early evidence of obviously what we were wanting to do. We wanted to make sure that the heart rate monitor could be placed on the temple area of the head. And going into a bit to the psychology of a swimmer, swimmers are very stuck in their ways. I would never wear a goggle that I haven't worn since I was 4. It's just something that swimmers aren't going to do. It's like asking a Nike athlete to wear a different brand. They're never going to really not wear their own brand. So that comes into play a lot when we talk about the actual user experience of the device. So swimmers are going to wear different goggles. That means different goggle straps. On the right, you can see a flat plastic one on the bottom and then a bungee elastic on the top. So the device needed to be designed to be able to fit both of those circumstances, as well as the aspect of swimmers on a competitive level are always going to be wearing swim caps. And the more recreational you get, the less there are going to be swim caps, but you had to build in the fact that the device needed to be able to work on top of and under a swim cap, because most people have their preference when it comes to that. Below, you can see our POC casework, which is basically just before we implemented any ID and design into the actual product, we obviously had the Valencell on the back, and we just had the entire board there for data collection. We started this data collection process around the beginning of 2016, and we spent the last 3 years testing with devices that look like this, and then obviously as we progressed, devices that look closer and closer to the final product to be able to refine our algorithm. So here you can see this is Marcin. He's one of our founders. He's testing with that early POC, bunch of lights on there, but we're basically just testing that, getting the early data off of the device, making sure that data was clean and succinct, and then being able to work that into our signal processing engineer workflow to make sure that the algorithm could work. It could be, made for different swimmers, different circumstances, above, below the cap, etc. Just to kind of finish up, a few large names that are obviously associated with us, which is very exciting because obviously we started this as swimmers. We didn't have much of a technology background, and we kind of have pushed from the very beginning that we as swimmers know what we wanted. We just had to figure out the technological aspects of getting there. And so it's very cool that we have all these different people on board with us. Greg Troy, the Olympic coach, Cody Miller, Jazz Carlin, double Olympic silver medalist. Going on the list, Dara Torres is a very well-known swimmer, 5-time Olympian. And then a few of the others that you've seen in the earlier slides. So that just about finishes it up for us.
Hey, Ryan, one other quick. Oh, sorry to interrupt. We did have a question come in before around, can multiple units be used by a team and give real-time heart rate information to the coach via an app?
So we purposely built that the device is going to be an unobtrusive experience. So it will be getting the swimmer real-time heart rate data, but it's not in the form of 150 to 152 beats per minute. It's in the form of zones. So the haptic zones for the swimmer to know, that's through vibration, and the coach knowing through the color system. That still works on a real-time basis because that light will be indicating those zones in real time, and the swimmer will be alerted in real time when they jump to different zones or where they are. But we purposely chose not to have that through an app because we didn't want the kind of social media effect on a pool deck where coaches would have their faces in a screen.
Gotcha. Yep, that makes sense. So yeah, sorry, please.
Yeah, no, so just kind of rounding out my slides, and I'm happy to take plenty of questions, is so this is kind of the development process, and this is the first product that our company Phlexs has come out with. This is called the Edge, and we're launching it on August 14th. It's been a very long road. I mean, in February of last year, we did our crowdfunding campaign through Indiegogo. That was successfully funded, and besides some of the certification process and all that kind of stuff that just comes with inexperience in the entrepreneurial realm, it's been an incredible development process, and it's very exciting, obviously, having these names associated with it and such a high importance on bringing this to the swimming market. And we've kind of seen traction across the board. I've had Ironman world champions reach out to us to see if they can get a demo unit before we ever even talk to them. Obviously, we have various national and international competitive teams that reach out to us daily, working with the US team, the Australian team, a lot of the British team. And then it kind of trickles down from there. We have fitness swimmers that come up to us while we're at the LA Fitness asking us what it is, and then they immediately go home and buy it or pre-order it on the website. So it's an exciting time. It's cool that we kind of conceptualized this from the beginning, and we're starting to see it start building the traction. And yeah, it's been a fun process.
Absolutely, we've enjoyed seeing the progress. One quick question has come in, or a quick follow-up to the previous question about multiple units. I think that it was looking for, can it work for multiple swimmers simultaneously?
So in the instance of using the same device on different swimmers, yes, it will. So it'll always be getting that same data. It's just a matter of how that data is going to be offloaded. So the swimmer is going to have their own profile, and their own profile is going to be set with their own biometric data. Obviously, their max heart rate setting, what their heart rate data is going to look like. So if it's all within the same workout, then the data is going to be shown a little bit differently, but it is actually usable by all different swimmers. In the circumstance where we see this a lot, swimming club teams that don't have enough funds to get a bunch of units, they'll normally get a few units and they'll share it between the team. That's totally fine. That's totally acceptable. We kind of built that into the functionality where it could kind of be siloed. All the data can be siloed off based off of the swimmers.
Cool, that's great. Just as a quick reminder to everybody, Ryan, I think this was your last slide, correct?
Yes, this is my last slide.
Okay, cool. So just as a reminder to everybody, if you do have questions, please submit those through the GoToWebinar control panel. We've got quite a few more coming in now. The next one is, did you develop the algorithm yourself, or did Valence support you in this?
So we developed our own algorithm that does a bulk of the processing, and we kind of leave the onboard bound cell algorithm to just give us the heart rate data. So we utilize that heart rate data on board the device for the real-time functionality, like I was just saying, with the haptic patterns and the LEDs. And so the bound cell basically is the only thing that's going to be dictating the real-time component. But then once we get to actual offloading, we have our own in-house built algorithm. We obviously take the inputs of the bound cell, but then we'll also put different differentiation on it. So on the app side of things, as you can see here, we kind of try and even out some of the heart rate data and kind of like break out some of the noise. Whereas if we're working with performance science teams, we'll give them the absolute raw data, something like a few samples per second for a 2-hour workout. But yeah, so that is one of the biggest proprietary elements to our company, is that we did develop this machine learning algorithm in-house. And what that meant was hundreds of hours of workouts, hundreds of swimmers. And we're lucky enough where our CTO is also our signal processing engineer, and he also has a elite background in swimming. He was a Pan American Games medalist in the early 2000s. So yeah, we went through the data collection process. It was long and grueling. I mean, it started off with the 4 of us just having an opportunity to work out a little bit more, and we set up some GoPros on the side of the pool. We had that early proof of concept, like I was showing you before. And we made sure that, the data matched up. And after a ton of labeling and using some of the neural network stuff, it got us to this point where we're arguably the most accurate tracker on the market. We're going through some validation studies right now with the Australian national team to be able to confidently say that going forward. But yeah, it's been very cool. And the algorithm is kind of the secret sauce, I would consider.
Indeed. Next question is, congrats on selling out the Indiegogo. How can I order after launch? I think that more of just kind of logistics of, are you selling these through the website or other channels?
Yeah. So we're launching with direct to the website, and we're kind of growing off of that. I think the first area where we'll be in traditional online retailers is going to be in the triathlon realm. But I appreciate the congratulations that we're doing pre-orders on the website right now. And obviously we just have a ton of notes on the website that's basically still stating the fact from last February, which is that we are fulfilling our crowdfunding orders before we're actually shipping any of our pre-orders. So we kind of have a 2-week buffer between actually being able to get those off the factory units out to our crowdfunding people before we actually go out to our pre-orders. But yeah, we're taking full orders right now and drumming up some of the media and some of the reviews right now, which will be cool once we actually get to the launch. But I appreciate the congratulations.
Cool. Yeah, that makes sense. Let's see. Next question is, as a coach, how many units can I view heart rate zones?
So we have built into the launch product 5 heart rate zones. That's we're going to calculate off of your biometrics what your max heart rate is, and it's different off of every person's age, fitness level, etc. So let's say, for the sake of the discussion, my max heart rate is 200 beats per minute. We have the 5 coordinated zones that are 10% increments from that 200. So you kind of have the ability to set that yourself, or you can let the app actually do it for you. But one thing that's cool, and we have spoken to a lot of coaches, and we're going to be implementing this in future firmware updates. It's definitely going to be one of our early developments, is being able to utilize some of the onboard firmware and the app processing to give more customization to the heart rates. So you could remove some of those zones. You can make it one singular zone. There's a circumstance where some swimmers, sprinters especially, would want to just get their heart rate up to a certain point and then completely stop. And so in that circumstance, we don't need to use the 5 zones. We just need one zone. And the moment that the balance cell grabs data of a certain beat per minute, we're going to make the device vibrate to you, and the coach will obviously see the color. So there's a bunch of different functionality going forward, but at launch, we're going to have 5 zones, and then we're going to kind of work our way outwards into the more customizable range using that heart rate.
Got it. It's funny, you answered that answer was the answer to the next question, which is, what's the basis for the heart rate calculations? I think that, if the questioner, correct me if this is wrong, if my interpretation is wrong, I think the question is more around how many swimmers or how many units can you see as a coach see heart rate zones for at any given time?
Okay, I see. So in the real-time circumstance for a coach, they can see the heart rate on any swimmer that's wearing the device. All the device does is it has a coach mode functionality. So a light similar to the one that's pictured right here is just going to be emitted from the device, and that can be seen from the pool deck as the swim coach walks by. But following the workout, we do have a coaching platform functionality to our product. And that's basically the swimmer or the athlete is going to be utilizing the app to always sync their device. The coach will then have a web platform that they can access where they manage the whole group. So following the workout, they will be able to utilize all the heart rate data, and they can kind of break it out into the different swimmers, what groups they are, and et cetera. And yeah, I think that answers the question, right? Yeah,
sorry, I was on mute. Yes, I think that does. if the questioner has a follow-up or wants more detail there, just let us know. And actually, this touches on the next question, but I'll go ahead and ask it just in case there are other plans here. Question is, are plans in development to enable a broadcast feature where the heart rate is seen on a receiving device on the pool deck?
Yeah, so that is always going to be something that we are trying to push for. But I will preface with the fact that it's definitely a balancing act in swimming, and this is something where oftentimes through our time when we were going through the business plans and pitching for funding and that kind of stuff, we often had to default to trying to get people to understand the anatomy of and the psychology of a swimmer. And it's weird because swimmers it seems so simple. All you need is some goggles and a swimsuit and you can go and do this sport. But swimmers have gotten so picky. And there's this culture of just such a specific usability. So what we had to do when we were actually developing it was basically just making it so that it could tailor to everybody. Does that answer the question, or?
Yeah, I think it does. Yeah, again, please submit a follow-up if that doesn't.
Yeah, sorry. I hope I answered that correctly.
That's all right. Next question is a different area. How do you handle privacy of the collected data when the team shares the edge?
Yeah. So what we do is basically it's going to be based off of your workout offloads, and you will have an edge attached to your actual profile. So every time that you would do a workout offload, you would then go to your phone and offload that. In the circumstance where, let's say it's a workout where a bunch of different swimmers are utilizing the same device, if it's a singular swim or it's less than, let's say, 500 meters, it normally will offload and process on the app within a minute or two. So we often want it where if there are swimmers trying to use it in as close to real time as possible, they have their phone on the pool side, they offload to their profile immediately, and once that profile has seen that new workout, the edge will be erased. The next person that uses it will also get it. And obviously we've had to go through a good amount of the GDPR side of things. So if the edge is noticing that there are certain biometrics that are being offloaded to someone's profile, it's going to make sure that that is for that person's profile. So the circumstances where we obviously have the recommended heart rate. If my recommended heart rate is 200 beats per minute, and then I do an offload where it's seeing 205 beats per minute, 210, that's very clearly off of a different athlete. So it's going to be attached to that user's profile, which they have to sync when they initially create a profile on the app. But then obviously the usability of it long-term is going to be how the swimmers can utilize it in their workout. And from the coaching side of things, we obviously have all of our GDPR compliance. We've made sure that our app backend has the ability where a swimmer can immediately just delete their data from the settings page. And the coach has to specifically ask for administrative privileges to be able to utilize the swimmer's analytics. And that goes through a process where the web platform sends an email to the user's profile account, and they have to manually input a code to their device, and they can see what coach is always going to be looking at their data, because we obviously need to fit into the GDPR compliance and make sure that the security side of things is going to be locked down, because health data is very, very important and needs to stay secure.
Absolutely. Actually, I may be able to handle the next question, but feel free to jump in. The question is, how have you validated the accuracy of the heart rate algorithms? As you referenced before, you're using the valence cell sensor technology that has the heart rate algorithms encompassed in that sensor module. I can speak to the way we validate the accuracy of our devices, which is in several different ways. One is we run a biometrics testing lab here at our headquarters that's run by a PhD exercise physiologist. He's a team of exercise scientists and data scientists, and we've got a pool of about 100 or so volunteers who come through here continually testing our latest R&D. They're testing early prototypes of our customers' devices, and they're testing other devices that are on the market as well. So we do extensive amounts of testing thousands of different variations of different devices over the course of every year. We also utilize third-party testing facilities, whether that's in university research organizations or other testing facilities, to make sure that they are they are able to replicate the results that we're seeing in our labs. And so on valencell.com, on our website, you can find a bunch of different white papers that walk you through the validation process that we go through, as well as the results from those different validations for all kinds of different devices. So if you're interested in more detail there, I would suggest you go to the Valencell website and go to the white papers section, and you'll find a bunch more information on that there.
Yeah, and I can also add a little bit to this as well. First off, it's greatly appreciated utilizing Valencell in our device and being able to have all that information from the beginning, because it gives us the confidence to work with the sensor, as well as the fact that through a lot of the entrepreneurial process of developing the business, we've had to actually cite some of our developments, right? We're obviously the first in the swimming realm to be able to have a heart rate tracker, and that obviously incorporates waterproofing and accuracy and all that stuff. And so through raising funding or acquiring customers, we've had to cite that level of validation. And I can obviously speak to the future of what we're doing right now is working with various international swimming federations, trying to get new validation studies. So the one that is currently actually in progress is Australia. So Australia spends a good amount on swimming. I believe their international swimming body has a budget of $6 or $7 million a year, purely dedicated to sports performance. And this is something that we haven't seen in the US. Obviously, growing up and competing at one of the best programs in the US, we kind of have that personal anecdote to say this isn't something that people are using. So in Australia, they often have 2 to 3 sports performance scientists on a pool deck at once. And you'll normally have these scientists doing a range of different tests, but most of the time they'll have a stopwatch, and one person will be collecting times, one person will be counting the strokes, and then another person will be responsible for grabbing heart rate on the athlete when they touch the wall. And after some of the bigger workouts, they'll also do lactate testing. So they'll do a blood drawn from the earlobe and do lactate, as well as medical grade heart rate sensors out of the have such a broad staff in Australia for their performance team. They are looking at implementing the Edge into their federation approach of performance tracking. And what that's meant is we've done a few sessions already where they've taken the lactate testing. They've used 2 of their own heart rate monitors, including a polar monitor that is used on the swimmer after the workout. And then they've used us on each swimmer that they're collecting that data on, as kind of like this variable or constant that you want the swimmer to always have, where we can show the stroke stuff and we can show the heart rate from the Valencell. So that's a report that they're actually going to be putting together in the coming months, and we're excited to have that, and we're definitely gonna share that with Valencell once that comes out, because that further gives us our level of accuracy that we've been comfortable with from the beginning working with it.
Yeah, we're certainly looking forward to seeing that. Next question is, what is the runtime? And I'm not sure the context of the question. Is this around battery life or another context? But let's assume for now it's battery life. What's the battery life and usage rate?
Yeah, so battery life is 7 to 8 hours. And that basically spreads across a highly competitive swimmers can get 2 to 3 days of charge. And then if you're talking about a fitness swimmer, they can get over a week's worth of workouts in charge. And we're able to keep that battery so efficient because the Bluetooth is only turned on after a workout. So we're not actually doing any transfers while the swimmer is utilizing it. The only power draw is obviously going to be the real-time heart rate, the haptic feedback, and the front LED. And then after the workout is when we're using some of the Bluetooth low energy. So we keep our battery strain pretty low, and that's a figure that we kind of worked towards from the initial design concept.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially with such a small form factor. You're not a whole lot of battery real estate.
Exactly.
Okay, next question is, I skipped one. Will coaches be able to export the heart rate data to third-party services such as Training Peaks?
So we are working towards some of the industry-wide ideas, which is like .fit files, and that's what Training Peaks and Garmin use. But at launch, we already have integrations with Strava. And once it gets to Strava, we kind of have this in our support area. You can kind of link your Strava account to everything else and get that data over there. As well as through our native apps, we obviously have the native health kit and Google Fit. So at launch, iOS and Android's native health apps along with Strava, and then in the short term, we're going to be working towards Training Peaks integration, and then even the ability to export to the raw data so that sports performance teams can utilize that data as well.
Cool. Next question is, will this device be able to record any outdoor open water specific metrics like distance or stroke count?
Yeah. So we do have an open water functionality to the device. We obviously don't use GPS on the device, so we can't give a wholly accurate reading of the distance for a swimmer. But what we do recommend swimmers use this device for in the open water circumstances, basically being a stroke technique and a heart rate tracker, and we're able to derive a good amount from that. So a swimmer, we recommend to swim with the device in a pool at least 5 times so that the algorithm is actually going to learn what kind of a swimmer that they are. And their profile is obviously going to be populated with their average distance per stroke and their average efficiency and all that kind of stuff. We're then able to bring that into an open water circumstance. So if we detect that you take 10 strokes every 50 meters, and then you go and do an open water race and you take 100 strokes, then we give an estimation of what we can get from the distance. But our main focus is being able to give you the analytics that are not currently present. So we have a lot of triathletes that have been demoing the product in the development process where they, for example, will use their Garmin watch or any GPS tracker as their primary watch to track their distance through GPS. But then they'll also utilize us to be able to get that really good and accurate heart rate data, similar to how a runner would have a cadence meter on their shoe, but they have their dedicated watch, or a cyclist has their onboard bike computer, but they'll also have a chest heart rate strap, that kind of stuff.
Gotcha. Okay, I believe this might be the last question, so if there are any others, please get them in now. But this question is, will the online service offer any reporting functionality for long-term analysis?
Yeah, so we give the swimmer and the coach the ability to leave notes and reviews. And in a more macro level of looking at the swimmer's training, we give your monthly averages. So based off of workouts and based off of distance. We want to give the ability where once you can actually utilize and shape some of the data for the swimmer, they can kind of derive things. But right now, the coaching platform is going to be the biggest thing where coaches can kind of make estimations. We don't actually have any functionality for, let's say, recommendations to the swimmer yet, but we're obviously able to utilize the data. And once we get those recommendations and that platform ready, then we'll be good to go from that end.
Got it. Well, this has been great. I'll say that I don't see any other questions have come in yet. So I just want to say, Brian, thanks a lot for your time and all the insights here. I think this has been really valuable and a lot of great questions from the group. So that's always a good sign as well.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Ryan. And I appreciate everybody asking the questions. It's always cool to see what everyone's thinking, and I appreciate the support.
You got it. And best of luck with the launch. And to everyone on the webinar, I want to just say thanks again for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us here today. And just as a quick reminder, we will have links to both the slides and the webinar recording that will get sent out within the next 24 hours or so. And feel free to share those with anyone that you think might be interested. And hopefully you found it valuable. But just want to wish everyone a great rest of the day, and I'll see you on the next webinar. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.